Taking the road south from Good Springs, we eventually come upon the gambling town of Primm. It's almost beginning to feel like every video I make about New Vegas has something to do with Primm. We come here for the main quest and for so many side quests. At any rate, once we clear the escaped convicts or powder gangers who have been terrorizing this town, we can enter the Mojave Express. After all, this is why we're here, to find out exactly what happened to our package. Upon entry, we find a robot, an Eyebot to be specific, lying on a table. It's surrounded by scrap metal and it looks like it's seen better days. There's a bumper sticker on it that says, "My child is an honor student at Roosevelt Academy," which of course is a Fallout 3 reference, but don't worry, we'll cover Roosevelt Academy in an upcoming video. But this immediately tells us that this robot came from the capital Wasteland. What is it doing here in the Mojave? On the other side of the robot, we see a crushed license plate. Great Midwest, and then some of the numbers are slightly rusted. I believe it says 2EDE59, Illinois 2062. But if we ignore the rusted numbers that are hard to read, what clearly stands out on this license plate are the letters ED-E. Upon activating it, we find a dialog box. Damaged robot. This is an advanced model robot with a reinforced frame. It is well weathered and appears to have seen a good bit of action. There is very little in the way of serious damage. We have three options: to leave it alone, to try and fix it using our repair skill, or to examine the electronics using a science skill. If we choose to try and fix it, we read that some servos and gyroscopes need to be recalibrated and replaced, but it looks as though the robot can be repaired. However, we need a repair skill of 65 or higher. On this character at this time, I did not have the repair skill, but we still have two other options. We can go ahead and examine the electronics, or we can try to repair the robot using spare parts. If we choose repair with parts, we read that it looks as though the damaged servos and gyroscopes could be replaced with the correct components. To repair this robot, we need 3 pieces of scrap metal, 2 sensor modules, and some scrap electronics. If we don't have that with us, we can try to examine the electronics. If we do, we read that a few of the primary electronic systems seem to be fully functional, and the redundant systems are all working. If we bypass some of the primary systems, the secondary systems should compensate and make some of the repairs easier. We need a skill of 55 in science or greater to repair him. If neither of our skills are high enough and we don't mind stealing, we find most of the components we need in this shack. There are 2 pieces of scrap metal right next to this robot, and we can likely find the rest in the nearby Bison Steve Hotel. But the items in this shack are set to owned, which means there must be an owner nearby. I'd hate to go walking off with somebody's prized robot, so heading into the nearby Vicky and Vance Casino, we can try and find this robot's owner. If you watched my previous videos on Primm, the Vicky and Vance, and the Bison Steve, you'll know that the guy in charge of the Mojave Express is a man named Johnson Nash. Heading on over to Nash, we can ask him some questions about the ruined robot in his shop.
That beat up old thing? What do you want to know?
Where did it come from?
A courier dropped it off a couple of months back. I got it working for a little while, but the darn thing pooped out. I haven't been able to get it up and running again. I was hoping to use it for some courier work, but that ain't gonna happen.
A courier dropped it off, eh? Well, what's wrong with it?
Hell if I know. I don't think it's serious, but my tinkering days are long gone.
Do you mind if I try to fix it?
You're welcome to try. It's yours if you can get it working. If I had my way, I'd dump it in the scrapyard in Novak and be done with the damn thing.
If I get it repaired, do you have any idea what I should do with it?
Not a bit. I imagine there must be some people around curious about that kind of technology.
With the go-ahead from Johnson Nash, we begin the quest, Eddie My Love, and we can go and try to repair the robot. Eddie My Love is a reference to the 1956 song called Eddie My Love by the Teen Queens.
Eddie, my love, I love you so.
Regardless of the option we choose to repair this robot, we find the option to run the repairs. With that, the robot pops on up and initiates dialogue with us. Our options for communicating with him are limited. At the beginning, we have 2 to either log off or to begin the companion protocol. If we choose to log off, he just wanders around, but we can always talk with him again to begin the companion protocol. With that, he joins us as a companion, and we get his enhanced sensors perk. With this perk, enemies are easier to detect and target even while cloaked. In effect, it means that enemies will pop up on our compass at greater distances. With EDE as a companion, we can detect enemies as if we had a full 10 points into our perception, and they appear on our compass even when cloaked. With this perk, we gain a 20 to 25% greater hit chance against cloaked enemies when using VATS. It works great both indoors and outdoors, though it has less effect indoors as walls tend to baffle his sensors. And really the only drawback of this perk is that now that our detection is much greater, it's harder to tell using the compass alone how close the enemies it picks up are to us. Eddie is a very useful companion. Even before taking the Lonesome Road with the DLC installed, Eddie here can help us craft ammunition, just like a reloading bench. We do have to have all of the ingredients on our inventory, and we have to have a high enough repair skill, but Eddie effectively acts as a reloading bench, and also a workbench. With the Lonesome Road installed, we have an option to access Eddie's multi-tools. This opens up the workbench dialog, and if we have the ingredients in our inventory, we have access to all of our known recipes, and we can craft whatever we want. And like in Fallout 3, in Fallout New Vegas, pet-type companions can accompany us with other humanoid companions, so we can travel with both Cass and Eddie, for example. But we can only run with one pet companion at a time. If we decide to take Rex, we have to send Eddie back home. Like all Eyebots, he functions as a mobile radio. We can turn on or off Radio New Vegas. Now, as of yet, we don't know exactly why Eddie was here. All we know is that Nash told us a courier dropped him off, but we do get to witness the moment that he's injured. In the trailer for Fallout New Vegas that Obsidian created for E3 in 2010, the trailer opens with an extended segment of Ed E flying down the road, blasting music as every Eyebot does until he's struck twice by some unnamed, unknown sniper. We don't know why, possibly just for the heck of it. But let's say we're not really interested in having a companion. Nash told us that he thought about scrapping it. Maybe we can get a bit of cash by doing the same. He mentioned something about a junkyard nearby. He's probably talking about Gibson Scrapyard, just north up the road from Novak. If we bring Eddie here, we can talk with old lady Gibson about selling him for scrap. But upon doing so, she doesn't mention Eddie, doesn't even seem to notice him. Instead, she likes to talk a lot about the Brotherhood of Steel and Helios 1.
You might have noticed the very large building just north of here. That's Helios 1. The way I heard it, the Brotherhood of Steel ran the place before the NCR took it away from them.
Well, what a bummer. Not what we were looking for. After finishing our conversation, we can turn to leave when...
Subject E, diagnosis complete. Begin recording. My name is Whitley. I'm a researcher at Adams Air Force Base. Until recently, I was in charge of the Duraframe Reinforcement Project for the combat model Eyebots. Eyebot Duraframe Subject E is both the prototype and the last functional model in this test group. I was prepared to make several significant upgrades to the machines. However, as the project was canceled and all Duraframe assets are being diverted to Hellfire armor, I'm sending this model to the Navarro outpost. If you're listening to this log from one of our Enclave outposts in Chicago, give this unit whatever repairs it needs so it can continue to Navarro.
So his official name was Eyebot Duraframe Subject E, and he was a prototype. No wonder, having a combat-worthy Eyebot is very strange. All of the other Eyebots we've seen, outside of the Automatron DLC for Fallout 4, have been no more than mobile radios. The Enclave were experimenting with combat-ready Eyebots. Eddie here was created by an Enclave scientist named Whitley at the Adams Air Force Base of all places, which has a prominent role in the major plot of Fallout 3. But instead of completing the Duraframe project, the Enclave diverted all of their assets to Hellfire power armor. Well, it sounds like Whitley put a bunch of sensitive information on this Ed E robot, but even after listening to this recording, we don't see these logs available on the unit. But it's interesting that Ed E chose to play back this log when he did. We had just finished talking to old lady Gibson about Helios 1. And the Brotherhood of Steel. The Brotherhood of Steel, of course, being a longtime enemy of the Enclave. And Helios 1 being a pre-war power plant run by Poseidon Energy. I wonder if it was that conversation that jogged Ed E's memory, causing him to play back the recording. And if that's true, we can probably unlock other recordings by talking with other people to trigger more of Eddie's memories. In fact, there are dozens of places all throughout the game that are trigger points for Ed E. Old Lady Gibson at the scrapyard is just one of them. Many characters around Helios 1, the Hidden Valley Bunker, and former Enclave scientists all have dialogue that can trigger these audio tapes. In short, anyone who reminds Ed E of the Enclave or of Poseidon Energy is likely to trigger an audio message. Now, we've met some former Enclave scientists in my previous videos. If memory serves, Dr. Henry at Jacobstown was a former Enclave scientist. Heading to Jacobstown, we can talk with Dr. Henry about his past.
Yes, specializing in neuroscience, both human and canine. Of course, this lab is nothing compared to what I had when I was with the Enclave. Yes, but the leadership and I didn't see eye to eye, so I left. It was the right decision, since the Enclave's oil rig was destroyed not long after.
And sure enough, after we finish our conversation with Dr. Henry...
Download complete. Begin recording. Navarro Outpost scientists, I am glad that EDE has reached you. You will find several data banks of information on this machine. Please handle this information with the utmost care, as it represents the sum total of the results of my research on the Duraframe Eyebots. There are also several data banks with information on my research into Poseidon Energy, and some projects they were working on in the Mojave area.
So Whitley pronounces his name EDE here, which doesn't make any sense. It would only be EDE if it was E.D.E. Instead we find Ed-E. But later on during the quests of the Lonesome Road, Whitley will pronounce his name Ed-E. I think Ed-E makes more sense, but based on his pronunciation in this holotape, I suppose both Ed-E and EDE are canonically appropriate. At any rate, the content of this recording is very interesting. Whitley presumes that Ed-E has arrived at the Navarro outpost. Ed-E may have triggered this dialogue, possibly thinking that by hearing Dr. Henry's voice, he was listening to a still active Enclave scientist. Whitley has placed several databanks about the Duraflame project on Ed-E here, also pre-war information about Poseidon Energy. As Nash said back in Prim, I bet there are all sorts of factions that would love to get their hands on this kind of information. And we learn exactly which factions as we explore more with Ed-E. After traveling with Ed-E for 2 days after we download this second log, a voice reaches out to us through Ed-E.
Hello? Hi, are you there? Oh, right. You can't respond. Listen, I'm using your robot as a relay to get this message to you. I've picked up some unusual chatter regarding your robot. It seems that it has some information that we could use. Oh, wait, where are my manners? This is Lorenzo, a knight with the Brotherhood of Steel. We'd be very interested in examining your tech.
Hi. Sorry to break in. He sounded truly riveting. I don't want to keep you much longer, but I'd like to make a counter-suggestion. I'm with the followers of the Apocalypse. We're much more liberal about the sharing of technology than those Brotherhood people. Bring your robot to us. We'll see that whatever information it may have on it is used for the greater good.
So, both the Brotherhood of Steel and the followers of the Apocalypse want the data on Ed-E. Well, we certainly can't do anything with it, and maybe we can get something for the data on this unit. Now, part of me is slightly disturbed, make that greatly disturbed, that scientists can practically hack into Ed-E and speak to me through him. Does this mean that people can spy on my conversations and find out what I'm doing by hacking into Ed-E? Does this mean the Brotherhood and the followers are constantly spying on my movements? That is a perplexing thought. Well, we now have to make a choice. Do we give the data on Ed-E to the Brotherhood or to the followers? Well, we'll explore both outcomes. Now, in order to speak with Lorenzo in Hidden Valley, we must have unlocked access to this bunker by doing all of the quests for the Midwest Brotherhood of Steel. I went through all of them in my video on Hidden Valley and my video on Veronica. If we go to the Hidden Valley bunker and we wind our way to the very bottom to find Lorenzo in the bunker's workshop, we can tell him that we got his message.
You're the one with that robot. I was hoping you'd bring him my way. Pretty impressive piece of hardware. I can't say that I've seen anything quite like him before.
Well, I've heard some information from its logs. Sounds like it's carrying some Enclave data.
Really? What kind of logs? What kind of data does he have on it?
The log spoke about Enclave Duraframe research and Poseidon Energy research.
Did you say Poseidon Energy? I've been researching some Poseidon projects here. Do you think you could leave your robot with me for a few days? I have some materials that I can use to upgrade his armor while he's here.
We do have an option to say no and to think about this for a little bit. This allows us to go to the followers of the Apocalypse and hear their sales pitch first. But if we are sure that we want to work with the Brotherhood, we can say, okay, you can have Eddie for a little bit. Strangely enough, even though we see what he's supposed to say, Senior Knight Lorenzo doesn't speak at this moment. At any rate, Ed E leaves our party. We then have to wait 3 in-game days. When Ed E is ready, we get a notification that Ed E has returned to Prim. Heading on over to Prim, we find him in the Mojave Express. And as soon as we see him, we complete the quest, Eddie, my love. He can join our party again, in which case we again get the Enhanced Sensors perk, but we don't find any more logs. However, Eddie looks completely different. The Brotherhood has cleaned him up, polished the metal, removed all of the things that gave him character, which makes me a little sad. I liked that license plate. If we choose to side with the Brotherhood here, Ed E gets a huge defense bonus. His damage threshold goes from 8 to 20. That's a bonus of plus 12. If we choose the Brotherhood and we pick Eddie back up afterwards, Eddie gets the following ending. With its logs cleared and its systems upgraded, Eddie remains a vigilant and constant companion to the courier. The Brotherhood used the information recovered from Eddie to create a small army of Duraframe Eyebots. However, if we choose the Brotherhood, but we don't return to Prim to pick Eddie back up, he gets the following ending. With its logs cleared and its systems upgraded, Eddie is discovered by a traveling caravan, who take him on as a protector as they wander the wastes. Alternatively, instead of siding with the Brotherhood, we can take Ed E to the old Mormon fort in Freeside to speak with the followers of the Apocalypse. We find the woman who sent us the message, April Mortimer, in her tent.
Thank you for coming. Let's talk about that robot.
What would you like for it?
I've heard through our channels that it has some research that may be related to Enclave and Poseidon energy technology. I'd like to get what I can from it and use that data for the good of humanity. All of humanity, unlike the Brotherhood.
What are you going to do with it?
First, I'm going to pull off whatever log data I can. Then I'll use some of the tech around here to upgrade its weapons systems. Shouldn't be more than a few days' work.
Why don't you want the Brotherhood to have it?
The Brotherhood is all about keeping technology to themselves and using what they find to protect themselves. They are isolationist and belligerent. I have no doubt that they plan to use the data for weapons research.
Before I decide, can you tell me anything about the followers?
There are plenty of people here to talk to you about us and our mission. Let's get to brass tacks and talk about that robot.
So we don't know anything about these people. Or maybe we do. Maybe we've already worked with the followers of the Apocalypse and completed all of their quests, in which case we know that they really do have the best interests of humanity at heart. If we choose to side with the followers, we can respond by saying, okay, you can take Eddie for a little while.
Thank you. I'll get it back to you as soon as I can with the upgraded weapon systems.
And just like at Hidden Valley, Eddie leaves our party. We then need to wait 3 in-game days, at the end of which we get a message that Eddie has returned to Prim. We find Eddie good as new, and we complete the quest, Eddie, my love. He can rejoin our party to give us his Enhanced Sensors perk, and we see that the followers have also brushed him up a bit. He does look a little different. The Brotherhood version is much more clean. The followers version is still a little rusty and a little dirty. All they seem to have done is taken off the garbage and license plate and tin can. We also still see a few dings in the metal of the Followers version, but the Brotherhood version is pristine. There are no dings, no holes. Eddie doesn't even have a scratch. If we side with the Followers, Eddie gets a weapon system upgrade. He gets a brand new laser zapper in addition to his red one. This new laser does 5 damage, gives Eddie an additional 5 shots per second, adding a whopping 169 damage per second. His weapon spread is decreased by 0.01, his critical chance rate is increased by 0.5%, and he gets a bonus of plus 5 to critical damage. A huge improvement. In my game, I have found that Eddie likes to use his new laser for long range. When enemies get into close or mid-range, Eddie will revert back to his primary red laser. If we choose the followers and then retrieve Ed E 3 days later back at Prim, Eddie gets the following ending. With its logs cleared and its systems upgraded, Eddie remained a vigilant and constant companion to the courier. The followers of the Apocalypse used the information recovered from Eddie on Poseidon Energy to develop new methods to harness energy from the sun. If, however, we chose the followers but never returned to Prim to pick up Eddie, he gets the following ending. With its logs cleared and its systems upgraded, Eddie is discovered by a traveling caravan, who take him on as a prospector as they wander the wastes. There are 3 other endings Eddie can have depending on our choices. If we discover Eddie in Prim, but we choose not to repair him, he gets the following ending. Eddie remained forgotten in the shop of Johnson Nash until it was repaired by another courier who let it continue on its journey to Navarro. Eddie was eventually discovered by the followers of the Apocalypse, who managed to recover vast databanks of scientific knowledge. If Eddie is somehow destroyed in our gameplay, he gets the following ending. After a long and fantastic journey, Eddie finally met its end with the dangers of the Mojave. It lay destroyed and gathering dust, waiting for scavengers to pick through its remains for salvage. And if we repair Eddie, but we never complete his personal quest, Eddie My Love, he gets the following ending. Eddie traveled with the courier until one of its memory banks was triggered, causing it to continue its travels on to Navarro. Upon reaching Navarro, Eddie vanished and was not seen in the wastes again. There are no ramifications for siding with either the Brotherhood or the followers. It's really essentially up to which bonus we want. Do we want Eddie to have more armor, or do we want his weapons to be more powerful? The choice was easy for me. Since companions don't suffer permanent death in Fallout New Vegas, unlike Fallout 3, there's really no need for his armor to be greater. I'd rather him do as much damage as he can before the enemies get to him, rather than him simply being able to withstand more attacks. Now, this is where the video ends, but there is a little bit more information about Eddie that I can't cover here. Ed E plays a pivotal role in the primary plot of Lonesome Road. It would be impossible for me to cover the rest of his story without also covering the primary plot arc of Lonesome Road. So I'm going to separate this part of Eddie's story from the other. In this video, we covered Eddie My Love, and soon, very soon, we will cover the rest of Eddie's story arc when we scour the Divide. Until then, thank you so much for watching. I publish a new Fallout video 6 days a week on a wide range of topics spanning all of the games. If you want to make sure you don't miss my next video, be sure to subscribe and to click that bell notification button. You can follow me on Twitter and Facebook to keep up to date with all Oxhorn news. And if you like what I do and you want to support me in a more personal way, consider becoming one of my patrons on Patreon. I know many of you are really eager for me to start my series on Lonesome Road. I hope you see this video as a promise that we will be doing Lonesome Road soon, but I'm going to spend a bit of time first to tackle other content before we head to the Divide. So please be patient. I promise it'll be worth it. Until then, I hope you enjoy my content, and I'll see you tomorrow morning, bright and early, with a brand new video.